Hello everybody, welcome to Calls. This is the 2023 Honda Classic DFS Tactics show. We have a lot to get into, a lot of field changes that have happened since Monday. We have a look at the weather, and as always, we have a lot of lineups to try to coordinate for the DFS slate this week, including a lineup where I am not using any of the top 5 projected owned players, yet am not dropping down into the 6Ks. So I'm pretty excited to share that shell of a formula with you. But let's not waste any time. Let's get into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from fantasynational.com. It is the best tool out there for your money. It's going to make you a much smarter gambler, a much better DFS player. There's a lot of great tools out there. I simply believe Fantasy National is the best. Go check them out. It's well worth your investment. In the description to the video, there are links to all of my social media. This is Twitter and Instagram, where I posted some research on Monday afternoon, and that is what led to the opening to the Data Dive show Monday evening, looking at that pattern of winners for the Honda Classic the past few years. So if you would like to see a summary of the research that I do every week on winners at various courses, course history, all of that, give me a follow at those links. Twitter is also where I post my betting cards, so I will definitely have my Honda Classic betting card out after the show this evening. It is bomb-filled. I am staying away from a lot of the chalk, at least in the outright market. So if you want to see my betting card week after week, give me a follow over at Twitter. And then the link to my Twitch channel is also in the description. This is where I do all of my in-depth research on Monday mornings. Sometimes I am live on Tuesday mornings as well by demand if there's a lot of interaction or want to see what I'm thinking about for my mixed condition model. Baseball content over there, gaming content, all of that. So if you are interested in that, give me a follow over at Twitch. And then finally, we're live. Chat is open. Want to hear from you all. Have you all made any wagers? Are you all doing the same that I've done and are looking to hit bombs this week as opposed to betting some of the chalk or lower numbers? What are you thinking about in terms of DFS? Are you along the same lines of my thinking and trying to avoid a lot of the chalk used players? I think we know who the majority of those are at this point in the week. Do you have any 6K plays? If so, which? All that good stuff. Are you trending towards a balanced look, stars and scrubs, somewhere in between, all of that? So hop into chat with all of your questions this evening. But let's figure out our strategies and our tactics for the 2023 Honda Classic. And we're going to start, as we normally do, on a Wednesday evening over at Windfinder. And let me scroll up here for you all so you can see the full forecast for Thursday. It looks very consistent, however windy. Anywhere from 10 to 15 mile an hour gusts, maybe, or 10 to 15 mile an hour sustained winds, maybe gusts into the 20s. It is saying that the wind could die down a little bit in the afternoon. Generally speaking, wind picks up in the afternoon, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. Good evening, P. Thanks for jumping in chat. How has your week been? Are you ready for the Honda? Have you made any outright bets? Have you made your lineups yet? All of that good stuff, but thanks for joining this Wednesday evening. As you can see here, Thursday, again, very consistent. I would say a slight favor, and I mean the slightest of slight favors, to the afternoon based solely on the forecast. However, you have to understand that wind generally picks up in the afternoons. So, again, the slightest of slight favorites to the Thursday PM. And then Friday looks fantastic for golf. Very little wind. However, it does look like the wind will pick up in the afternoon to, maybe 8 to 10 miles an hour, where it looks, at least as of now, to be forecast dead calm in the mornings. So if there's a favor on Friday morning and a slight favor on Thursday afternoon. That means I would favor the Thursday p.m. Friday a.m. slate. And I've seen a lot of others in the gambling arena, if you will, the industry or whatnot, say that they have a pretty big favor for Thursday p.m., Friday a.m. I don't see a huge favor. I mean, I guess I suppose I can see where they're coming from if indeed the wind is this calm on Friday morning. I don't think that it is an absolute necessity that you have to avoid, say, the Thursday morning, Friday afternoon tee times. I think in the case of a tiebreaker, you could probably go with Thursday afternoon, Friday morning preferably, but I don't see a huge favor like the rest of the industry to be gravitating towards. So there's the information. I'm just relaying it for you, giving you my thoughts. I could very, very well be wrong. I have no problem admitting that. I don't see a huge favor. Maybe slightly a Thursday afternoon, Friday morning. But other than that, I don't see much there. And then for the weekend, we don't have the super forecast for Saturday or Sunday, but for the weekend, looks again pretty consistent. Winds maybe in the upper single digits to 10, 11, 12 maybe. Now, if this wind from Monday that is projected for Monday arrives, Sunday, then that could cause some havoc. But otherwise, it just looks like a great week for golf. So with that, we're going to move to Fantasy National. And I went ahead and added the moderate and windy filter and have set this for the start of 2022. So your top players in the wind since the start of 2022: Sung Jae, Shane Lowry, Chris Kirk. Well, it would help if I sorted it. Aaron Wise, Matt Kuchar, Billy Horschel, Christian Bezuidenhout, Brandon Wu, Denny McCarthy, and Thomas Detry. Note that I skipped Alex Noren. He is one of the late withdrawals. So let me cover that very quickly. We talked about 4 on Monday evening: Sam Ryder, David Lipsky, Patrick Rogers, and Lonto Griffin. There have been 3 more field changes. Danny Lee has withdrawn. He has officially joined LIV. Austin Smotherman and Alex Noren have also withdrawn from the Honda. So if you submitted early lineups, make sure you go double check and see if you have any of those 7 players: Sam Ryder, David Lipsky, Patrick Rogers, Lonto Griffin, Danny Lee, Austin Smotherman, and Alex Noren. If you submitted early lineups, make sure you go check those. Those 7 players are now not playing at the Honda. So anyway, there is a look at your top wind players. If you want to keep scrolling down a little bit, Taylor Pendrith, Cameron Percy, Adam Long, Ben Griffin, Ryan Armour, JT Poston, S.H. Kim, Lee Hodges. There's your top 20. And you can keep continuing on down the list. Make sure you give these players a little bit of a boost this week, especially for tomorrow if you're playing round 1 showdown. Looks to be the windiest of the 4 days, at least in terms of a forecast. So give these players a big boost in round 1 showdown. If you think the wind is going to be a little bit more of a factor than what the forecast shows, then give these players a little bit more of a boost. Conversely, these are your worst players in the wind in the past year and month plus. Andrew Landry, Harry Higgs, Jonas Blixt, Marcus Bird, Jason Duffner, Dylan Wu, Ben Crane, Harris English, Brett Druitt, Max McGreevy, Fabian Gomez. Moving on down the list: Brian Gay, Jim Herman, Ryan Brim, Kevin Tway, Martin Trainer, so on. So make sure you give these players a downgrade in your rankings or in your considerations if you think wind is going to be a bigger factor than what the forecast is showing. But one thing that I'm very confident in, and you will see that throughout the mixed condition model when we get there, is that the Honda has just always played difficult. So I want to reaccustom myself and you, the viewer, to the top players in performance, total performance, when a round is difficult that's in the field this week. So again, the same timeline, starting in at the beginning of 2022. Your top performers when a round has been difficult. Those players are Sung Jae, Shane Lowry, Aaron Wise, Chris Kirk, Tyson Alexander, Brent Grant, Billy Horschel, Eric Barnes, Adam Schenk, and Lee Hodges. So quite literally the same four. I think Chris Kirk and Aaron Wise were transposed in wind in ranking. I think Kirk might have been third and Wise fourth, but M and Lowry were easily the first two, and then these two were next. So the same top four for wind and difficulty. I know Billy Horschel was up there in the wind. Now he is top 10 also when it's difficult. Lee Hodges was up there. Denny McCarthy was up there. I believe Thomas Detry was top 10 for the wind. He's just outside the top 10 for difficult. So these same players are popping on all these metrics, and it's going to be no surprise when we see the projected ownerships who the biggest chalk is this week, or who some of those players are. So I definitely wanted to reaccustom you to those two things, the wind and difficulty, especially the difficulty, since I used that filter on quite a bit in my mixed condition model. So let's go ahead and move to the mixed condition model. And for whatever reason, my camera decided to go a little bit out of focus. Well, it makes it probably better viewing for you all in that case. Let's see. Let me see if I can't get this to focus just a little bit. Apologies for that. If it doesn't, well, you can still see the Fantasy National very clear. So my mixed condition model for this week turned into quite a few metrics. I went back on Monday evening and looked at the 2022 Honda mixed condition model, and I used a lot of the same metrics. And as we were talking about Monday evening, I was on the same line of thinking with those same metrics this year. Now, I changed a little bit of the percentages and whatnot, but I wasn't terribly confident knowing that I was matching a whole lot of the metrics and filters from last year's Honda Classic that produced a pretty terrible mixed condition model or rankings or predictive analytics. Just to be frank, it was pretty bad. Now, certainly 2022 could have been, just a weird year, maybe. Certainly, but knowing that the Honda is traditionally difficult, and the most recent traditionally difficult tournament that we have seen is the Farmers, and I performed very well at the Farmers. And when I looked back at the Farmers mixed condition models from this year and last year, I noticed that there were a ton of metrics in there. So as I was working through my Honda mixed condition model, I felt a little bit more secure, a little bit more at ease, throwing in quite a few more metrics to look at. Seemingly, when courses are difficult, you want to look at a lot of different things. So for this week at the Honda, I mentioned Sunday night, a little bit of Monday. I think strokes gained approach is going to be the most important factor this week. So I've got that at 15%. We've seen all week that it's a ball striking course. It's a strokes gained approach, especially course. You have to avoid the water. The course is difficult, so you're going to have to hit the greens. Approach, I think, is going to be the biggest factor. So I've got 15% in strokes gained approach. I wanted to put 10% in putting on Fast and Lightning Bermuda. But you see I only have 5% because I've split 5% out elsewhere, and it's not in 3-putt avoidance. It's a specific length. So we'll get to that at the very, very end of the mixed condition model. And that could be one part where I am wrong if the specific length doesn't matter or if I just need more percentage total in putting. But I only have 5% in putting fast and lightning Bermuda. These greens have been fast or lightning every single round since 2014, I think. It is what it is. They're just fast and lightning greens. 10% in bogeys avoided when it is difficult. 5% in doubles avoided when it is difficult. I talked about this quite a bit on Monday in the sense that with so much water on the course, doubles are a pretty common factor here at PGA National. So I want to see who avoids doubles the best. 5% each in greens, sand saves, and scrambling when it's difficult. And we didn't talk at all throughout the week about sand saves. But with the amount of water that is in play here at PGA National, the bailout areas are protected by bunkers. So your professionals are going to hit it into the bunker rather than hit it in the water. So I think sand saves is going to be a decently important factor, and it turned out that it was at least more important compared to the average full field course throughout the years. So 5% all greens, sand saves, and scrambling when it's difficult. Again, the emphasis on difficult because the Honda has always been difficult. 10% in proximity 175 to 200, the most important proximity here at PGA National. I think it's the most common approach shot. And Microsoft Excel, did I say Microsoft? Microsoft Excel backed that up by showing that it was also more important at PGA National versus other full field courses. So 10% in 175 to 200 proximity, which also matches the 175 to 200 par 3s, which are the most important length of par 3s here at PGA National. So really, you can kind of think of it as 15% in 175 to 200 procs. 5% is just split out because par 3s. You see that I have 10% in all par 3s as well. So par 3s are going to be a major factor this week. The other 15% metric are par 4s. And we saw this a little bit at the end of the show, or at least at the end of the Fantasy National portion of the show Monday night, how much par 4 really led to correlating success and just the amount of huge strokes gained numbers in these par 4s, which makes a lot of sense. There's only 2 par 5s on the course. It's a par 70, so par 3s and par 4s have extra weight. And your winner last year, Sepp Straka, led in par 4s. He was also very high in the specific length that I have singled out here in the 400 to 450. So 15% in all par 4s, 5% more, or 5% extra, if you will, in par 4s 400 to 450. And finally, the putting metric that I mentioned. I have 5% in Bermuda fast and lightning speed green Bermuda greens from 10 to 15 feet. This looked like it was the most important range in Microsoft Excel, and when I went through the prior leaderboards and really scoured them, prior leaderboards and previous winners actually had pretty good form from 10 to 15 feet leading into the Honda, whether that was on POA or Bermuda. So 5%, a little cheeky 5% in 10 to 15 feet putting on fast and lightning Bermuda greens. So there's my mixed condition model for the week. I talked about how if the specific length of putting doesn't matter, or if I just need to have more percentage in putting in general, I will be weak to that. I could be weak if birdies matter. We saw Monday night in the Data Dive show that quite a few of your winners were very, very good at birdies gained as well as bogeys avoided. I don't have anything with birdies gained, so if that ends up being an important factor, I'll be weak to that. If there's another proximity if total proximity or if no proximity matters. I will be weak to that. And then finally, I don't have any par 5 metrics. I just don't feel they are important at all here at PGA National, but if they end up being important, I will be weak to that. But there is a look at the mixed condition model that I have for the week and what I will be weak to in terms of a model bias, if you will. So with that, let's move on over to Microsoft Excel and the reveal of my rankings. And it would help if I change the screens for you. And I'm going to center this again because, of course, it got messed up when I was trying to fiddle with it and get it to focus. The reveal of the top 10 for me this week. I struggle with bogey avoidance in real life. The fact that you're struggling with bogey avoidance, I will golf clap for you, P. I am much more so in this territory and the dreaded other. I'm being a tad facetious. I'm not terrible at golf, but I can get snowmen with the best of them. We'll put it that way. But the reveal of my top 10 goes as follows. Sung Jae, the number 1 player in my rankings, probably no surprise. At least it wasn't for me. Denny McCarthy is number 2. That is a surprise for me. Shane Lowry, number 3. Lee Hodges, number 4. Chris Kirk, 5th. Johnny Vegas, Callum Tarrant, Robbie Shelton, Thomas Detry, and Billy Horschel round out the top 10. So Denny McCarthy at number 2, a little bit of a surprise for me. He has been playing very well. We've got a lot of emphasis in par 4s, and you see he is 4th in par 4s, so that's really vaulting him up in these rankings. He's also very, he's pretty unique for the 9Ks, 9 and 10Ks. So that's also helping him, considering percent owned is a part of my calculation. Really, the only thing that he has been struggling with, but that's why it gives me pause this week, greens when it's difficult. And for as good of a putter as he is, he kind of struggles from 10 to 15 feet, at least on these fast and lightning Bermuda greens. But the length of these specific par 4s, he's been very good. The specific length of par 3s, he's been very good. Number 2 in scrambling in this field when it's difficult. So you like that. Sand saves, a lot of that, again, to do with the putter. The putter will save a lot of your ailments. I do have some concern, again, because of the greens, but his irons have been better. They have been better. He's been notoriously, bottom half of fields. Now, this is a very weak field, so perhaps that's why he's being vaulted up so much. That's a distinct possibility. But his irons have been better. Shane Lowry, number 3. I thought it would be Sung Jae Shane Lowry, but the fact that Lowry is 3, not really going to think too much of it. He hasn't played the par 4s very well, and you see just the drastic difference in quality between Denny McCarthy and Shane Lowry. And when you have 15% in that specific metric, it's going to create a lot of ground for Denny McCarthy. Lee Hodges, I think this is a little bit of an overreaction to his very strong Genesis. Having said that, he's played this event once. It was very, very good. He finished 9th. He's also been pretty adept at avoiding bogeys when it's difficult. And that's why I was very, very high on him at the Genesis, because he plays difficult courses pretty darn well. So top 20 in bogey avoidance. He's 11th in double bogey avoidance when it's difficult. I know that's off the screen, but he's 11th there. And he's 5th in greens when it's difficult. Again, being 4th in my rankings, I apologize. Being 4th in my rankings, I think is a slight correction to his fantastic Genesis. But I figured he would be in the top 10 because of my emphasis on difficult, and he plays difficult courses well. Chris Kirk, Johnny Vegas has played this event very, very well. I believe he's 5 for 5 the past 5 years here at PGA National. Thomas Detry is getting hurt in the rankings because he's never played here, so this is an artificially high number. Here in the course value, I have to put something in here so the math will compute. but this is a pretty artificially high number. I would have him inside the top 5. I'm very high on Thomas Detry this week. Number 1 in par 4s this PGA Tour season, or at least number 1 in this field. He's 3rd in bogey avoidance. He's 10th in par 3s, which is just off your screen. He's 6th in greens when it's difficult. A lot to like with Thomas Detry. I would have him higher. He's getting hurt by the fact he's never played here. So let's talk about somebody that P and I are very familiar with, but somebody I've recommended, or at least brought to your attention the past 2 weeks, and it has not worked out well at all. And you see a lot of the Fantasy National community is staying away from Callum Tarrant. Callum Tarrant, I understand, is going to rate out well because of my emphasis on difficult, and he plays difficult courses generally pretty well. He's top 15 in bogey avoidance. He's number 2 at the specific proximity here at PGA National. Now, he doesn't avoid doubles. That could be a concern, absolutely. And he's not very good at sand saves or scrambling when it's difficult. So he's got his warts, absolutely. But to use a baseball analogy, there's been 2 strikes with Callum Tarrant the last 2 weeks. I will cautiously, I'm not going to be full bore into Callum Tarrant, but I'm going to be cautiously using him again, and third time, well, then he'll strike out. Again, to use a baseball reference, but everything says that Callum Tarrant should be pretty good here, just due to the fact that it's very difficult. Robbie Shelton I like quite a bit as well. However, he does have the Thursday morning, Friday afternoon tee split. So if you are thinking that that's going to be a bigger factor than I am, then you might want to shy away a little bit more from Robbie Shelton. But I like Robbie Shelton quite a bit. 6th in irons, top 20 in par 4 performance. He doesn't have a bad statistic across here. Nothing red. So we'll continue to scroll across here. And in fact, I'll make this easy. I'll make him the top line. He doesn't have a bad statistic. He has nothing in red. Now, he's got several middling stats. Sure. But he has nothing in red. He's just been pretty darn solid. I would not worry about this course value. He's played here once. So I like Robbie Shelton quite a bit. And anytime you're on Bermuda Greens, you got to think about Billy Horschel. But enough with my rankings. Let's go through the price board and figure out some of the pivots and the fades that we want to focus on this week for the Honda. So we will sort on salary. You have 2 players in the 10Ks this week. That's it. Only 2. Sungjae at 10.7. Shane Lowry at 10.4. Shane Lowry has played this event slightly better. Shane Lowry was the runner-up last year. Sungjae missed the cut last year. However, Sungjae has won this tournament in the past. Shane Lowry hasn't. If I'm choosing between Sungjae and Shane Lowry, I'm choosing Sungjae. I'm more confident in the bogey avoidance. Although Shane Lowry, is the number 1 bogey avoider, I'm just more confident in Sungjae doing it consistently. He's also won here. I'm just more confident in Sungjae, and Sungjae has the Thursday afternoon, Friday morning tee time. Shane Lowry has the Thursday morning, Friday afternoon tee time. So again, in situations with ties or you're virtually tie breaking, I would have gone with Sungjae anyway, but in that case I would go with Sungjae because he seems to have the better draw. I think both of them are going to be pretty good. Both of them are clearly going to be very chalky. Sungjae is your most projected owned player for good reason. 21% is a whole lot of chalk to eat. I'm going to eat some of it. I will use Sungjae, but as I mentioned in the intro, I do have a lineup shell that is really unique. It's ignoring the top 5 most projected owned players. So that shell that I show you will certainly not have Sungjae, but the times that I don't go with that shell, I will use Sungjae. I will use a little bit of Shane Lowry too. I think he's a good play. But if I have to choose, I'm going Sungjae over Shane Lowry. Moving into the 9Ks, we have Chris Kirk, Billy Horschel, Minwoo Lee, Matt Kuchar, Aaron Wise, Denny McCarthy, and Thomas Detry. Well, we talked about a lot of these guys in my top 10. Chris Kirk is fine. He's played this event very, very well. He's pretty chalky, but I mean, top 10 in par 4s. Now, the specific proximity, not great, 126th, but he is number 1 in avoiding double bogeys when it's difficult. He's number 10 in sand save when it's difficult. He avoids bogeys fine. His irons have been good. Chris Kirk's a fine play. It's saying that he's going to be as chalky as Shane Lowry. I don't know if I believe that, so I think Chris Kirk could be usable if you're trying to save some money from Shane Lowry, save some money and or save some ownership percentage. But I like Billy Horschel this week. He's number 10 in my rankings. He's at 12%. It's Bermuda. Anytime you're on Bermuda, you got to think about Billy Horschel. Now, yes, he generally puts average speed Bermuda greens better, but it's still Bermuda. He's also 4th in greens. He's 5th in scrambling when it's difficult. So a lot to like here with Billy Ho. I'll be using my fair share of Billy Ho, hoping that he is pretty darn unique from the top 3. Minwoo Lee, I'm just out. This goes along with the question that Darnell posed on Monday night in the Data Dive show. If a guy doesn't have a lot of statistics, I really just don't know how to evaluate. And Minwoo Lee, the statistics he does have, they aren't very good because he didn't play all that well in 2022. He's top 50 in the OWGR for a reason. Minwoo Lee is very, very good. It hasn't translated to the PGA Tour yet, so until it does, I'm just off of Minwoo Lee. I love Matt Kuchar. Generally, he plays easier courses better, but he also plays short courses very well. And PGA Nationals are short course, very difficult, but short. And he's actually gotten much better when it's difficult. He's 4th when it's been difficult in bogey avoidance. The specific length of proximity, not the best, but par 4s, very, very good. He's 2nd in sand saves when it's difficult. I believe he is the number 1 sand save player on tour in the PGA Tour season. I believe I heard Genesis. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's the stat I heard. He has some kind of ridiculous sand save percentage this PGA Tour season, so the sand shouldn't bother him. I like Matt Kuchar. He's also number 1 in 400 to 450 par 4s. So while he is quite a bit owned at 15%, I am going to gravitate to Matt Kuchar. Aaron Wise, he's played this event very well, and analytics love him, but man, he's been pretty darn bad lately, especially with the irons, which is what his calling card generally is. So, especially because I always will have a win bet on Aaron Wise, it's much easier for me to fade him in DFS, just because I always have a win ticket on him. He's my FOMO. We talked about Denny McCarthy. I don't think he's 2nd, but the metrics line up. Par 4s has been great. Of course, the putting. He's avoided doubles on difficult courses very well, so Denny McCarthy should be fine. He hasn't played the best here, but it hasn't been terrible. Talked about Thomas Detry. I love Thomas Detry. He's getting hurt in the rankings because he's never played here, so this number is artificially high. But in the 9Ks, I think Thomas Detry, even with the extreme amount of ownership, I think he's my number 1 player in the 9Ks. I think Billy Horschel or Matt Kuchar is probably going to be 2nd. I'll probably say, I might say Billy Horschel 2nd, and then Matt Kuchar 3rd, but that's pretty close. I think Chris Kirk is serviceable. I think Denny McCarthy will be serviceable. And the fact that Denny McCarthy is at 13%, I'll probably be overexposed to Denny McCarthy, hoping that he's the unique one, him and Billy Horschel this week, knowing that Chris Kirk will be chalky, Detry will be chalky, and I'm not going to be able to get away from them. So I'll probably be a little bit overexposed to these two, and those are the first couple of players that I'll lose to if they don't play well. Moving into the 8s, Taylor Pendrith, JT Poston, Adams Vinson, Johnny Vegas, Sepp Straka, Harris English, Adrian Meronk, Christian Bezainhout, Cam Davis, and Garrick Higgo. Well, you can kind of see a little bit of all or nothing here. Garrick Higgo, I don't want any part of this week. He has not played well here. I think it's in 2 tries. Maybe it's just 1. But he hadn't. This doesn't feel like it suits Garrick Higgo very well because he gets wayward off the tee, and that spells disaster here. You can see the bogey avoidance. You can see the double bogey avoidance. It's he's better when you need to go get birdies as opposed to avoiding bogeys. Cam Davis, again, I know the analytics are saying that he's top 15 in bogey avoidance when it's difficult, but I just always picture him like JT Poston. I just picture them as players to attack easy courses with, not difficult. So I'm a little shy on Cam Davis and JT Poston for that reason. Now JT Poston's a little different. He really likes short courses. But I'm still a little shy on both of them because they just are easy course players in my mind as opposed to difficult. I really don't want any part of Taylor Pendrith. This is a full fade for me. Again, the irons haven't been good. Par 4s haven't been good. He's best when off the tee matters, and off the tee just doesn't scream that it'll matter this week. It's important to find the fairways, but Taylor Pendrith says best when he can hit driver and still find fairways. You're not going to be hitting driver too many times here at PGA National. So Taylor Pendrith is a full fade for me. So he'll be another player I lose to. I'll lose if he does play well. Elsewhere here, Johnny Vegas, I understand it. He's played very, very well here. The metrics seem to line up. 17.5% is a whole lot of chalk. And knowing that I'm going to be using Sung Jae and Chris Kirk, Matt Kuchar and Thomas Detry, I can't advocate that it's a full fade, but man, I'm going to try and not use Johnny Vegas as much as possible because that is a whole lot of ownership percentage. I talked about Moronk. Like, I know he has a little bit more stats than Minwoo Lee, but I'm just not there. He doesn't have enough for me to have a confident feeling in what he brings to the table. So let's talk about where I am going in the 8Ks. Take a look at Adams Vincent. His win at the RSM is on a very similar style course. Short, coastal, water in play. There's a lot to like here. Now, the RSM is generally not difficult, so that gives you a little bit of concern. But the irons were pretty darn good at the Genesis. You see the proximity, 22nd. 13th in par 3s, and we know how much I feel like those are going to be important this week. Now, again, speaking to the difficulty or his lack of performance when it's been difficult, he's been pretty bad at avoiding doubles, greens, and sand saves when it's difficult. Again, he's kind of like JT Poston and Cam Davis in that regard, that you think about him on easier courses. I don't know. The win at the RSM on a similar course kind of gives me a little bit of confidence, plus his performance last week. So I'm willing to dip my toe with a little bit of Adams Vincent. Take a look at Sepp Straka, your defending champion. Like, sub 8%. His irons have been pretty good this PGA Tour season when he has played. Now, he has not avoided bogeys at any good clip. I'll give you that. But just like Billy Horschel, Sepp Straka is a Bermuda specialist. He loves Bermuda, so it was no surprise to see him gain so many strokes on the greens last year here at PGA National. He's also been okay when it's difficult in terms of greens and sand saves, maybe just not the bogey avoidance, but I think that will even out with the putting. A lot of the appeal to Sepp Straka is if he is indeed at 8%. If he's a little bit higher, then, it's just kind of a lukewarm thought. But I kind of like Sepp Straka at 8% this week. And then Harris English. Take a look at Harris English. He has played this event very, very well, and he also doesn't mind the wind. Let's move into the upper sevens. Ben Griffin, very, very chalky, but for good reason. This is some more chalk I'll eat. Number 4 in irons. Number 2 in par fours. He's top 20 at avoiding doubles when it's difficult. You see, he's been good. He hadn't been excellent, but he's been good enough at avoiding bogeys when it's difficult. There's a lot to like with Ben Griffin. This is the chalk in the upper sevens that I won't be able to get away from. I talked about Robbie Shelton. I really like Robbie Shelton. He does have the bad tee time of the Thursday morning, Friday afternoon, but I still think he will be quite serviceable. Number 13, he's 13th in greens when it's difficult and 4th in sand saves when it's difficult. A lot to like there. Talked about Lee Hodges. This is probably an overreaction to his very strong Genesis, but he plays difficult courses well, and that same narrative is going to follow. I used him at the Genesis because I thought it was going to play difficult. I'm going to use Lee Hodges because the Honda is going to play difficult. So I really like Lee Hodges. I don't like that he's this high amount of ownership, but I will still be using Lee Hodges. I'm actually going to take a pretty big chance and fade Hayden Buckley. A lot of people like Hayden Buckley this week. I get it with the par fours. He's very good at the proximity. He's very good at hitting greens regardless, but he's 11th when it's difficult. This is just a play on the percentage. I'm just going to fade Hayden Buckley. And then Ben On is your number one strokes gained total player at PGA National the past 5 years. So if you really value course form, take a look at Ben On. 11.5% is a little on the high side, but I don't think it is. I don't think it's preventative of you using Ben On. So there's my look at players in the upper sevens. Moving to the lower sevens, again, I like S.H. Kim. The irons haven't been good. That's to say the least. 102nd, but 3rd in par fours. He's also avoided he avoided bogeys when it's been difficult, and he's 10th in fast and lightning Bermuda greens so far in his short time on the PGA Tour. So I'm going to combine the fact that I think he likes Bermuda. He's also 20th in sand saves, or top 20 in sand saves when it's difficult. Knowing that I think sand saving is going to be pretty important this week, I'm going with the putting and par fours with S.H. Kim. Take a look at Davis Riley. This is a very, very, very talented player. He has not played well lately. This is a very, very talented player to get at 8.5%. It's worth a look. I wouldn't, put all my eggs in his basket in the lower sevens. But that is a very, very talented player to be sitting at 8.5 projected % ownership. Danny Willett, I like. He had a very strong Genesis. Again, top 15 in par fours. He's top 50 or so in Bermuda greens. He also avoids doubles very, very well. Kind of like Danny Willett. Elsewhere in the lower sevens, Russell Knox, number one strokes gain approach player. Take that for what you will, because he's got struggles a lot of different other places. Bogey avoidance when it's been difficult is bad. Sand saves, scrambling when it's been difficult is pretty bad. So you're going to be playing the irons with Russell Knox. I think that you could use worse narratives to use different players. Like choosing the number one strokes gain approach player is always going to be a logical choice. So I don't mind Russell Knox, I suppose. We talked about Callum Tarrant. Dylan Fratelli, for as much as he is rated fairly low, you see the course form, it's pretty good. The irons have been okay. He's top 20 in fast and lightning speed Bermuda greens. He avoids doubles. He's also very good at scrambling when it's difficult. So take a little look at Dylan Fratelli. Even though he's pretty far down in my rankings, he's getting hurt by the fact that he hadn't played par fours very well so far in the PGA Tour season. But there's a couple of names in the 7,000 even I really want to bring your attention to. First is Aaron Baddeley. Aaron Baddeley, number 5 in par 4s, a lot like the S.H. Kim argument. going with the par 4s, and he's also 5th in par 3s. So you combine the fact that you have a player that's 5th in par 4s and 5th in par 3s. That's a pretty good recipe for success here at PGA National. Then you've got pretty good form in fast and lightning Bermuda greens. There's a lot to like here with Aaron Baddeley. So take a long look at Aaron Baddeley. I also don't mind Mark Hubbard. I'm much higher on Aaron Baddeley than Mark Hubbard, even though they're only 2 spots apart. In terms of rankings, I'm much higher on Aaron Baddeley. Hubbard has played this event, I think, once, maybe twice, but has played it very well. And then, lastly, again, Luke Donald should be okay. Again, it's all with the irons. Top 40 in irons, par 3s, he's been very good. He's also very good on fast and lightning Bermuda greens. So I think Luke Donald should be serviceable. I wouldn't say to put a lot of your eggs in that basket, but I think he should be serviceable. So let's move to the 6Ks. And I do have a few players here that I want to bring or call to your attention. Eric Cole is the most commonly sought after 6K behind Satoshi Kodaira. So you're not going to be terribly unique if you're dropping into the 6Ks with Eric Cole, because a lot of your fellow contestants seem to be coming here if they're dropping into the 6Ks, but there's very good reason why. You see, number 10 in bogey avoidance when it's been difficult. He's also top 20 in par 3s. He's top 10 in both sand saves and scrambling when it's difficult. So I really like Eric Cole in terms of a 6K play this week. I like Akshay Bhatia a little bit as well, all around the par 4s. He's also been very, very good at the specific length of proximity here at PGA National. But a lot of his appeal comes into the par 4s, so take a look at Akshay Bhatia. Couple more here. I mentioned Satoshi Kodaira. He is the number 1 proximity player, I believe, at Honda National specifically. I know it says here 7th in 175 to 200. I'm talking specifically at Honda National. I think he's the top proximity player. He's 10th with his, top 10 in irons, top 20 in par 4s. There's enough to like here, but I'm actually going to avoid Satoshi Kodaira. I'm quite worried about the bogey avoidance, even though it says it's good. You look at the double avoidance is really, really bad, and his metrics in the other categories when it's difficult is not the best either. So I'm a little concerned with Kodaira, so that's a fade for me. The other name that I want to bring to your attention in the 6Ks is Austin Cook. He's only played this event once, so don't get too hung up on the prior course form. 11th in irons. 11th at 6,500. You look at the bogey avoidance, it's fine. Par 4s, top 50. Now, the putting has been bad, but you don't have to be a good putter here to win. It helps, but you don't have to be. The greens have been bad, 139th. But something's going to give here, because you're not going to be the 11th strokes gained approach player and the 139th player in greens gained. So something's going to have to change there. I'm going to believe in the irons. And you see sand saves and scrambling when it's difficult. He's been very good. So take a long look at Austin Cook, especially if you're trying to gravitate to a stars and scrubs type lineup. At 6,500 and 2% ownership, that's giving you a whole lot of uniqueness. And I think he's a pretty good chance to make the cut. So there's a look at the price board, how I feel about some of the values and pivots and fades among the different ranges. Let's start making some lineups. We'll start with tiers contests. In tier 1, you have Sungjae, Shane Lowry, and Chris Kirk. I think it's just the safest play. I'm just going to go Sungjae. I know he's going to be the most chalky, but I'm just going to take this, what I think is the safest play, especially since I know he has the good end of the draw Thursday afternoon, Friday morning. So give me Sung Jae there, and I will try to find my uniqueness elsewhere. Tier 2, Billy Horschel, Minwoo Lee, Matt Kuchar, and Denny McCarthy. I really like Matt Kuchar. He's probably going to be the most chalky. Billy Ho is a very worthwhile pick here in Tier 2. A little more shy on Denny McCarthy in tiers, because that's a lot of risk to have to depend on a very small but excellent skill set that Denny McCarthy has, like putting. So I think I'm going to gravitate more towards Kuchar or Horschel. I will go with Matt Kuchar, but Billy Ho is very tempting, especially because he should be pretty unique compared to Matt Kuchar. But I will go Kuchar. Tier 3, Aaron Wise, Thomas Detry, Taylor Pendrith, JT Poston, and Johnny Vegas. To me, it's Thomas Detry, no ifs, ands, or buts. Aaron Wise, I guess, would be fine, but he hasn't played very well. I mentioned Johnny Vegas. That's a whole lot of chalk, especially for Classic. And if tiers ownerships are anything similar, I just don't want any part of that. So give me Thomas Detry, even though he'll probably be the second most chalky. But give me Thomas Detry. I just think he's clearly the best player in Tier 3. Tier 4, Adam Svensson, Sepp Straka, Harris English, Adrian Meronk, Christian Bezadenhout, Cam Davis, and Garrick Higgo. No thanks on Higgo, Davis, Bezadenhout, or Meronk. So really you're left with these three. Oh boy. Give me Sepp Straka, I guess. I know I need to be unique. If you're not worried about chalk, take Adam Svensson. But I think I'll take Sepp Straka. He's shown year in and year out that he likes this place. Granted, I mean, he's the defending champion. Harris English probably worthwhile, although it's much more volatile. A lower floor and probably a higher ceiling. But give me Sepp Straka in Tier 4. Tier 5, Ben Griffin, Robbie Shelton, Stephan Jaeger, Lee Hodges, Aaron Rai, and Justin Suh. Pretty tough. Best player's probably Ben Griffin. I'm a little worried about Robbie Shelton because he has the bad end of the draw. It might be Lee Hodges. Ben Griffin's very, very chalky. I think he's going to be pretty good here, but it's very chalky. Give me Lee Hodges. Robbie Shelton, if you're not scared of the tee time, then go with Robbie Shelton. But I think it's one of those three. Griffin, Shelton, or Hodges. I will go Hodges. Tier 6, we have Peter Malnati, Harry Hall, Zach Johnson, Aaron Baddeley, Mark Hubbard, and Matthias Schwab. Matthias Schwab is kind of interesting, even though we didn't talk about him in Classic, because he finished 7th here last year. So if you believe in the course form of 1 year, it's hard to do. It's only 1 year, but if you believe in that, then Schwab would be a pretty worthwhile gamble. Give me Aaron Baddeley. I think Mark Hubbard would be fine as well. But give me Aaron Baddeley in Tier 6. So there's a look at tiers lineups. Let's start making some Classic lineups and figure out how we are going to maneuver through the price board and all of the seeming chalk there is this week. So if we're going to try to match your fellow contestants in the lineups that they're making, well, we're going to start with the most projected owned player. That's Sung Jae. The second most projected owned player is Johnny Vegas. I don't know if they will be able to squeeze in another player between Sung Jae and Johnny Vegas. I'm going to try to do that for them. If they do, it's Thomas Detry. Yeah, they probably can do it. So now you have about 7,300 per. Let's see. Joseph Bramlett at 7,500 is getting a little bit of love. Hayden Buckley at 7,600 getting some love. This is 7,100 and 7,000 even. That area of the price board's kind of getting ignored. either ignored or your fellow contestants are just everywhere there. So instead, what I think I'm going to have to do, I think I'm just going to have to eschew using Detry and just go straight to Johnny Vegas. So Vegas, and then Ben Griffin, Hayden Buckley, Joseph Bramlett getting some love. And is he the... So he's at 13. Yeah, he's actually the lowest. So we'll have to go Joseph Bramlett, Hayden Buckley. We have 7,700. That's Lee Hodges. He's getting quite a bit of love. So there is a look at what your fellow contestants seem to be doing, especially if they're gravitating to Sungjae. 16% projected match in your big GPPs. That's a lot. That is a lot. But do note that none of your fellow contestants seemingly are going below Joseph Bramlett. If they are, they're spreading out and they're using different people. Ben Taylor, 8.5%. I mentioned in the 6Ks, you've got Kadira's at 7.5%. So maybe if your fellow contestants are coming down into the 6Ks to try to squeeze in, another, 9K play, we'll use Detry for now. So Sungjae, Detry, let's see, we use Bramlett. Will Gordon's also right at 13%, a little bit less. But now, they have essentially 8,000 per player. They can do any number of things here. This is, Ben Griffin and Cam Davis, sub 10%. Lee Hodges and Moronk, not getting a whole lot of love. Let's see. If they come off that to Joseph Bramlett again, Detry, we used Vegas at 17, Svensson 12, really it's just kind of, it's Ben Griffin and then, whoever in the maybe upper 7s or low 8s. Really, there's no one getting used in the low 8s, actually. See, this is where it's getting pretty tough because no one is double digits in percent owned after Joseph Bramlett at 7,500. So, if your fellow contestants are going Sungjae, they're trying to squeeze in a whole lot of other people in that mid to upper 7s. Now, if they're not going to Sungjae, then, they have a whole lot of viability here. They go like Chris Kirk, Matt Kuchar. We've used Detry and Vegas. Let's try to do something else here, like Ben Griffin, come all the way down to maybe a Griffin, Hodges, and Buckley or Aaron Rye even. There's a 15%er, different kind of feel, but still bottoming out at Joseph Bramlett. All right, I'm going to save the shell of the lineup that I mentioned in the intro for last. But if we're going to navigate this chalk, first decision you have to make, are you going to use Sungjae or you're going to try to beat him? So I'll make one lineup with each. So if we're going to use Sungjae, I don't see any way you don't come down into the low 7s. Maybe even the 6s, but I don't think you have to come down into the 6s. But I've given you plenty of players in the low 7s and 6s if you need to. I talked about Aaron Baddeley. I don't mind Dylan Fratelli. I completely understand if you are gun-shy about Callum Tarrant after his 2 recent performances. I get it, but analytically everything lines up for him. Even in the 6Ks, you can look at players like Eric Cole at 6,900. Akshay Bhatia, 6,800. Somebody else that I wanted to mention and just now got to, Eric Barnes at 6,700. I really like Eric Barnes as well. You see main 3 statistics, nothing outside the top 50. He's also top 20 in putting on fast and lightning Bermuda greens. Pretty good at scrambling when it's difficult. I like Eric Barnes as well. I'm going to try and not go into the 6Ks and use Sung Jae. Might not work. But if you're going to go with Sung Jae, you're going to have to find some uniqueness somewhere. That's part of Aaron Baddeley, but I'm still saying, whether that's Billy Horschel or Denny McCarthy, Sepp Straka, you're going to have to find somewhere where you're picking up some uniqueness. So I'll drop all the way down to Sepp Straka in that case. And honestly, I really don't mind going back to back with Straka in English, Harris English. And I still have upper 7s in terms of prices that I can maneuver around. If you're okay with taking a very chalky second player, you can take Ben Griffin, who I think is going to be very good this week. If you're not scared about the tee time, you can take a look at Robbie Shelton, Lee Hodges. I'm going to use Ben on in this scenario. A little bit middling in terms of ownership, but he's the top strokes gained total player in the past 5 years here at PGA National. And then we'll round this lineup off. We can go Davis Riley, S.H. Kim, Danny Willett. I'll go with S.H. Kim, but really there's a lot of players that you can fit into here, and you still have 400 that you can maneuver around. Maybe you want to try to squeeze in a third 8, or maybe you drop S.H. Kim down a little bit and try to squeeze in a 9K, like a Thomas Detry. Absolutely, and you're hovering at this 10.5% projected owned. If we're not going to use Sung Jae, that really frees us up to perhaps take a little bit other chalk in the 10 and 9Ks, and it would really let you load up on the 8s. So let's do that. I'm going to start with a Billy Horschel. Be very, very unique, at least in terms of relation to other 9s and 10s. I'm going to start with Billy Horschel and then come down to maybe a Thomas Detry, a Johnny Vegas. And yes, Vegas is very chalky, but again, I'm banking on the Horschel uniqueness. Still have 7,500 per player. Again, I still don't mind dropping into the 6Ks, but we used Baddeley last time. I'm going to bottom out at Callum Tarrant here, just to show that you don't have to go into the 6Ks. So now you have 7,800 per player. Maybe you want to believe in Cameron Davis. I don't like this setup for him, but that's a little bit of uniqueness you can pick up, and certainly a talented player to get at 9.5%. But you have Johnny Vegas, and then let's see, 7,800. Boy, there's it's Robbie Shelton, Lee Hodges, Ben Griffin. It's the same level of players. That's why I was never shy about going back to back with Sepp Straka and Harris English. Let's do Johnny Vegas. I really don't like Bezadenhout. You know what? F it. Let's just keep Cameron Davis in there, just for fun. And then at 7,500, Will Gordon getting a lot of love, but probably worthwhile this week. I mentioned Davis Riley. This is a very talented player to get at 8.5% ownership. Ben Taylor, somebody else you could think about in the low 7s. Russell Knox in the number 1 iron play or strokes gained approach player. Is a little bit more chalky again. That's with the Vegas. If you wanted to drop Vegas, go pretty unique with Straka, English, Moronk. I'm not there with Moronk, but maybe that would drop the ownership percentage quite a bit. But I think this kind of lineup would be pretty darn unique as long as you don't saturate it with, a Kirk, Detry, Vegas, Ben Griffin. As long as you stay away from that, combination, I think you'll be pretty unique. But let me show you the lineups that I've really been enjoying plugging and playing, if you will, or making the shell of and inserting different players into. I mentioned that I wasn't using any of the top 5 projected owned players. So the top 5 are Sungjae, Shane Lowry, Chris Kirk, Johnny Vegas, and Ben Griffin. So I'm not using any of those players. So with that, I'm using the 6th, 7th, and 8th, admittedly, but I have been skipping the upper 9s and the 2 10s entirely. I've been dropping all the way down to Matt Kuchar as my leadoff or my top, and I've been loading up. And I mentioned I was going to be overexposed to Denny McCarthy, more than likely. This is one of the reasons why, I'm going with a Kuchar, McCarthy, Detry. Maybe if I get a wild hair, I'll go like Horschel, McCarthy, Svensson, or Kuchar, Detry, Straka. Something along those lines is what I have been gravitating towards most commonly. And again, I'm going to use Sepp Straka here. You don't have to. It's using a whole lot of your remaining budget. But then, again, I might strike out with him, but I've been going Callum Tarrant and Aaron Baddeley as my last 2. 10.5%. A little bit on the higher side just because of Detry. But, by no means do you need to go Straka. You can go Robbie Shelton and really balance this lineup out. You can go Robbie Shelton, Davis Riley, and someone like Ben Taylor, who we've mentioned but haven't inserted in. You can go Callum Tarrant, who I've mentioned quite a bit, Luke Donald, Mark Hubbard. So there's a lot of different ways you can go with this 999, 777 shell that I've been kind of gravitating towards. And I've been counting Adam Svensson as a 9K. He's just been the third of these 3. Like, I've been going as low as Svensson and as high as Horschel with this, but I'm in this range here. Like Horschel a little bit, but I've been doing Kuchar, McCarthy, Detry, and Svensson. A little bit of Aaron Wise, a little bit, but again, it's easier for me to fade Aaron Wise because I will always have a win ticket on him. So that's my exposure to Aaron Wise. But, if you wanted to do something like that, you go Matt Kuchar, Aaron Wise. Probably have to drop down to Svensson maybe for it. Again, the 7,600, you're pretty chalky so far, so you might have to go with something like a... he's not as chalky. Been on... Again, you're still left at that same 7,600. S.H. Kim and Danny Willett. Seong Hyun Kim and Danny Willett. Again, the percentage is a little bit high, but these 3 are pretty interchangeable, and these 3 are middling owned. But that's the kind of shell that I've been most often seeing myself gravitating towards, is that 999, 777. Other than that, in the comments, as always, please let me know how you're doing throughout the week. I want to be able to shout out members of the community who do well. Along those same lines, if you have outright wagers or parlays or top 10s or 20s, let me know via social media or in the comments of this video. Let me know how you're doing throughout the weekend. Would love to be able to shout you out next weekend or next Sunday, which, speaking of, Next Sunday next week is a very busy week. It's a double tournament week. Arnold Palmer Invitational is the main tournament. So Sunday, initial research, Monday, data dive, Wednesday, DFS Tactics. But Tuesday will be the full show for the Puerto Rico Open. So there are 2 tournaments next week. So a full week of calls next week. So 4 straight nights for calls. Harry Hall thoughts. I looked at Harry Hall a little bit. You're going to have to probably remind me. There he is. I knew he was in the either upper 6s or low 7s. So Harry Hall, to me, he's been very, very good with the Bermuda. I believe it was the RSM that he played well. In fact, let's go check Fantasy National here. I believe it was the RSM that he played well. Let me change the view for you. Let's see. Shriners, he was 15th. Okay, so the RSM, he missed the cut. It was Sony, fast Bermuda greens. Now, you can't bank on him gaining 9 every week on fast Bermuda greens, but Houston, fast Bermuda greens. Well, I thought they were normally fast. I guess they were average this past fall. Okay. I don't hate it. The irons kind of scare me a little bit. Although he performed well at Pebble Beach. If the wind picks up, should be pretty good. The last time you mentioned somebody that I hadn't really thought of, 2 weeks ago, you started the debacle, P, of somebody that might rhyme with Saren. So I kind of like your thought process there, though. I'm a little concerned with the irons, but I don't hate it. Tyler Duncan. So never going to be good on putting. If the wind becomes a factor, he generally doesn't play the wind very well. He is coming off a decent Genesis, but all of that was in putting. So you see, the irons haven't been very good. Where is he at? He's 66. So what's the spreadsheet look like for him? Tyler Duncan. So the irons, we just saw the par 4 is not good. Bogey avoidance, okay. I will say I'm much more on your Harry Hall line of thinking than Tyler Duncan. I would not want to use Tyler Duncan based on what I just saw. But I kind of like the Harry Hall a little bit, especially with the putting. He's been okay scrambling. Thing is, we really haven't seen him at a very tough course. That's my thing with Harry Hall. We haven't seen him at a very tough course, and that's what PGA National is. You're trying to find those ultra unique guys. I can't guarantee you 3%. How many strokes does Zach Johnson win by? Not enough, clearly. I think you've got your winner right there, P. You need to spot him about 10 shots. You might have a chance. I mentioned I can't guarantee 3%, but I don't think Aaron Baddeley is going to be very widely owned. He should be pretty good this week. Somebody else that I didn't use in any of the lineups because I was trying to avoid 6Ks for y'all, Eric Barnes, I think should be pretty darn good this week. I know it's saying 5%, but that's what you're trying to find, these super unique guys. I've got a win ticket on Hankley Biota for what it's worth if you want to get real crazy. The irons have been okay. Bogey avoidance when it's difficult, very good. And look at the greens for Lee Biota when it's been difficult. So, I mean, you at least have something there. Now, he has not played this event very well at all, so take a little bit of, whether you're going to go with the analytics or the prior course form. I've got a win ticket on Lebiota, so, I mean, it's not completely out of the question. You mentioned Malnati. He is at 71. So, yeah, I mean, the putting, I get, but the proximity, he's generally better with wedges. The whole field seems the same. It is. It really kind of is. It's almost a Korn Ferry Tour graduate event, really. Someone touting Andrew Novak. Sure, maybe. Novak. Yeah, I mean, the irons have been there. Good at the par fours. The putting is atrocious, but, I mean, we know putting can come and go as much as the next thing from round to round, even. The specific length of par 3s and 4s are pretty good. Top 40 in both of those. Yeah, I can see an Andrew Novak. Sure. Absolutely. I don't think that's where I would go first, but sure. Like I said, I like Eric Barnes. Matty Schmidt is also another name that I kind of gravitated towards early in the week, and then he kind of fell off with my rankings. A lot of it doing with the difficult to par, but this is a very talented player. Let's see, Bhatia. Ben Martin, 3rd in irons. Not a whole lot else. He's number 1 in sand saves, for what it's worth. But, I mean, generally speaking, you're right. This is a lot of the similar quality players. This says it all. When Uncle Luke isn't a 6K, it tells you the quality of the field that you're dealing with, really. Uncle Luke's not even a 6K. But he's under your magic threshold. Just saying. All right, that's going to do it for the DFS Tactics show this evening. P, thanks for jumping in chat and interacting and having some fun. I always enjoy it. Thanks to everybody else out there who watched, listened, liked the video, subscribes to the channel, supports it in all the ways that you do. I really appreciate it and enjoy what I do, trying to give you a statistician's look at golf analytics and win some money in the process. Reminder, Friday evening, we will have the Friday Night Chill stream. We'll do weekend golf for the Honda Classic, round 3 and round 4, but I focus a lot on weekend. So that'll be Friday night. And then, again, make sure you mark your calendar, your reminders, however, full week of shows next week, since there are 2 tournaments with the Arnold Palmer and the Puerto Rico. So for all of the wagers that you've made this week for the Honda Classic, for all the defense contests you've entered this week for the Honda Classic, for this weekend and every weekend, may all your bets be profitable.